Hello, everyone. As a follow up to our garden club spotlight that we did the other day, we got some questions about plants we were talking about in the videos. So we figured we would do a garden club chat. Let's talk about plants. I'm here with Peter from the Garden Club. And don't forget, the Trilogy Garden Club is open to all Trilogy residents who are passionate about gardening and wanting to learn. So at the end of this video, there'll be information about how to get in contact with them. But for now, I'm going to let Peter take it away and discuss some of the plants in his yard.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Great to be back, and wanted to just do a little bit of a walk through part of our yard where you can see some of the different plants that we have, and we'll actually talk a little bit more about them as we go through some of the slides. Um, so let me just switch my camera around, and if I'm able to do that, oh, there we go. Well, it's not doing that, but that's okay. So I'll just go this way.
That's okay. We get to see you while you're doing it.
And I'll go through. And so what we have behind me is kind of a wall of yellow bells along with a Japanese plum. And these are great plants. They don't take a ton of water. They're pretty well desert adapted. We have bougainvillea here, and this is a torch bougainvillea. And then we have something called, I think that these are referred to as sparkettes, and they feature the, the colors of ASU. And so
That's
go,
cool. That's the mini version of my Sparky that I have in my front yard.
yes, yeah, they grow about between 4 to 5 feet tall, so they're a little more manageable. Next to it, we have a giant bird of paradise, Mexican bird of paradise, and this is one of three that we have in our yard, and they're great because they require practically no maintenance. It's something where it's like if you prune them the second week of February, maybe the third week of February, depending upon if we've had a cold winter or are getting more cold weather, lop it down to about 18 inches from the ground, and you don't need to touch it again with prunes until the very next February. It's something where it thrives with that single cut and then just grows and becomes beautiful and throws off blooms literally from, as early as early May, literally through October. And sometimes, depending upon if we have kind of an Indian summer type of thing, even into November. Um, we also have honeysuckle. Honeysuckle is a really an interesting species of plant. It has beautiful blooms, perfect for pollinators. I can get up close a little bit, and you can see that it's great for bees to climb into, and even better for hummingbirds to fly and get their proboscis into. It's really kind of fun to watch.
I was just going to say, I have those in my backyard, and I've got a whole gaggle of hummingbirds that come in there, and they just love them. So it's really cool because you get to see the hummingbirds flying around and everything.
They do, and they stop, and every once in a while we'll get one that will actually perch on one of the branches, which is an interesting thing because they weigh practically nothing, and it's fun to watch them perch and the branch doesn't move. It's
I
it's it's
I love
crazy.
that. I love that too when you see them sitting. And I got the bistro lights in my backyard, and they go up and perch on those too. So hummingbirds are absolutely amazing.
They are. They are. Right next to it, we have kind of a relative of the Sparkies and the Yellow Bells, and this is called an Orange Jubilee. And we have two of these Orange Jubilee. They're practically twins in that they are roughly 12 feet tall. And I'm a big fan of letting the plants do as they're basically meant to do. I probably give our guys a little bit more water than they need, which I'm going to slowly begin weaning them away from that, to kind of control their size. Because one of the things that maybe many people may not realize is you can moderate the size and height of plants. how much they grow based on how much water they get. You don't want to underwater because that obviously will probably rob them of the nutrients that they need and probably kill them. Um, but you don't want to give them too much water, and they can become very leggy and extend themselves. And our Orange Jubilee, I think, are examples of maybe on a slightly high side of too much water. And that's okay. So I'm scaling that back. And so next year, these will probably be about 8 foot tall instead of maybe 12 to 14 feet tall.
Wow, that's
Here's
great.
another
Do you
one of
give them
our
any
fruits.
do you give them any nutrients?
I do. You know, I in the early spring, typically, actually, it's very late winter, but early spring, late winter, it's something where I'll go through with a what's referred to as a complete fertilizer, which means it's got attributes of phosphorus and potassium and nitrogen, the three main macro ingredients. And I go through and feed just about everything, um, probably 3 or 4 times. And I space those feedings out, typically like the second week of February, and then maybe the third week of March, and then the last week of April, and then maybe uh, toward the end of May, beginning of June, and then typically not again until probably another 2 weeks from now, when the weather has really come down, not only at nighttime but also during the day. Um, you don't want to be fertilizing into um, into the heat of the summer, because the last thing you really want to do is fight the plant's need to survive. Because when you fertilize, it's something where it gets those nutrients and it seeks to grow. It seeks to put out new growth and to become bigger and more robust. And in the depths of our summer, in the heat of our summer, that actually it actually stresses the plant, and you can do more damage than help. So it's something where I typically don't do any fertilizing from probably, maybe Memorial Day or Flag Day, which I think is early June, and again, not until the middle to end of October.
Well, that's great. Were you ready to go through the PowerPoint a little bit here for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me have a seat. And
I'll get my screen up here for everyone and we can go through this and talk a little bit more about plants.
great.
So let's go to this. So the right plant, right place. I'll let you kick this off.
So the right plant and the right place, as you say here, it's critical to the importance of the success of your plants, and not so much for their surviving, although with some plants that are very temperamental, it does. But if you really want the plant to thrive, you want it to be in the right place and you want the right plant. So for instance, if you have plants that love full sun, like a yellow bell, like a bird of paradise, you want them out in the open where they're not going to get very much shade during the day. They can take the full sun, like a bougainvillea, where it can take not only the full sun, but you can place it up against a wall, because the radiant heat that comes off the wall is not going to kill it. I can tell you that it's something where for me, I've been learning about gardening as I go, and I can tell you that our honeysuckle is the right plant, but in slightly the wrong place. Because if I were to take the camera down and go behind it, because it's nestled up probably a foot and a half, maybe 2 feet off of our back wall, you'll see that the back side of it is not nearly as robust looking as the front side. And so that's something where I have to combat that, because I planted that there before I really understood or had as firm an idea of the right plant in the right place. Um,
That's a great example.
yeah, it's something where, and here's one of the things about the garden club. It's something where there isn't anybody among us who does this perfectly. We each of us are still learning and still growing in that learning. And it's something where, you know, there's no one here that thinks themselves as, the ultimate expert. I learn something new every single meeting. And I mean, I'm literally learning like right up to today. It's something where uh, you, like one of the courseworks that I'm doing is all about pruning now. And I've been learning about pruning now for several years, but that's another chapter.
Very neat. Well, what's some, we talked about it a little bit, but here's some key facts to consider about the right plant in the right place.
Yeah, the sunlight, that's a determinant as to, how it's going to manage its life, because sunlight is what helps the plant develop chlorophyll, which is its energy source. The soil is really interesting. It's something where it not only serves as an anchor, which keeps the plant itself upright and stable, but it's also the medium through which water and oxygen and all of its nutrients are brought into the plant. They really don't get anything through the leaves and stems except for the sunlight. So if your soil is caliche, solid rock kind of stuff, it's going to be very hard for a plant to thrive. So it's best if you've only got the soil that was compacted when they built your house, then it would be okay to bring soil in and give those plants a little bit of an extra leg up, if you will, because it's that important. And then moisture, um, in the desert, it's something where moisture is a huge factor because it's very sparse, it's unpredictable, and plants, even desert adapted plants, or I should say some desert adapted plants, really prefer predictability. Um, and that's why we have irrigation systems, so that we can even out those empty spots where Mother Nature just literally comes up dry. Um, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of exact watering, but I can tell you there's a general rule of thumb. It's referred to as watering by the numbers, which is actually a document put out by uh, the Arizona Municipal Water Users Association, affectionately known as AMWA.
Amwa. I was going
Yep.
to say Amwa.
AMWA, and they call it 1, 2, 3. And with the premise being, if you have annuals, you want to water to a foot deep, where um, like 45 minutes after to an hour after you've watered, if you have a soil probe, you can go down, and it can be just like a stick if you want, if you don't want to go out and spend the money for an actual probe. And the soil would be moist a foot down. If you have shrubs, you would want that depth to be 2 feet. And if you have a tree, you'd want that depth of wet soil, of moist soil, to be 3 feet, and not flooded wet, but just damp, just moist. Um, and that gives you an idea of you know, just how much time it takes to do that watering. So for instance, if you have a yellow bell, or if you have hibiscus planted in your yard and not in a container, and you have your water on, your irrigation, for 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes at night every day, it's something where you're giving that plant about a quart of water in the morning, and about a quart of water in the evening, which is not nearly enough to get to that 2 foot level that you would need to have the water. So it would be better for you to kind of um, compress that water into maybe 1 or 2 days a week, and run your irrigation for an hour and a half. And
Makes
obviously,
sense.
and because then the water has the chance to get down. Now, the other thing about moisture is uh, you don't leave it the same all year long. In the summertime, our watering regimen is considerably longer in duration, even though it's not more days per week. But the duration is longer because it takes that much longer to get the water down and,
Mhm.
and for it to stay moist. Um, and that's like the 1, 2, 3 is a really good rule of thumb. The only variable is, the soil and how well the soil percolates the water.
Well, great. There's a couple of other things too that you have to think about. I just switched to the other slide.
Yeah, the space is important. So, oftentimes when people buy landscaping or do landscaping, um, they have a mental picture in their head as to where things are, where they're going to be, and they base it on, the little 5-gallon baby plant or the 10-gallon baby plant that they put in. And they don't take into enough account what the mature plant is going to be size-wise. Um, it's okay to have the plants nearly overlapping each other when they are mature, depending upon the look that you want to have in your yard. But you don't want to have them like right on top of each other. So if if the growth guide says, spacing every 24 to 36 inches, then follow that guide and then, water appropriately and you'll get some really good spacing. And that's pretty important. Um, Climate is a really interesting variable because climates vary um, as as much as 5 or 6 different places in any given yard. I've got 3 places in my yard where I've tried and I realize I really can't plant anything except cactus because there's no drainage. It's pure clay, and there's nothing for anything to really anchor into, and the water percolation is horrible. So it's something where I really don't put any irrigation there, and so I might have a cactus or two because it doesn't need it. But 10 feet away, there's great soil and I've got a yellow bell and I've got a hibiscus and I've got an elephant food growing and they thrive.
Very interesting.
Yep. And then function is part and parcel with, with all the different other elements. Like, what do you want the plant to do? Do you want it to basically stand on its own? Are you seeking for it to be a shade getter or a shade giver? Um, we've got a couple of lantana. Once it's in the direct sunlight and absorbs it, and um, I think because of the way the water evaporates, the moisture evaporates, that it stays at a pretty manageable size. And yet we have another lantana under one of our trees that gets a significant amount of sun, but it also gets great shade in the afternoon. And it has taken over a section of our front yard. So it's and on purpose because it was a big space and we wanted it to have that big of a presence. Um, so understanding the function of what you want it to do and how you want it to be is also part of the right place, the right plant in the right place.
That's awesome. So, what's the benefits of having the right plant in the right place? I like these bullet points. This is great information for everybody.
Well, the first and foremost is, you get plants that are thriving. They're healthier. Um, when you plant with the right spacing and give them the right nutrients and the right combination of water, um, there's really a lot less maintenance. It's something where if you've crowded your plants together and they don't like to be crowded next to each other for whatever reason, then you're constantly going to have to go in there and do the pruning. Well, pruning is pretty labor intensive. And unless you're willing to get up in the, in the heat of the summer and get up at, 4:35 a.m. in the morning, it's kind of uncomfortable. Um, and I've done it myself and thinned out a garden and made the landscape a little bit more approachable. And I've been able to leave it where it is. So that that spacing is incredibly important for reduction of maintenance. Um, so fewer pests and diseases. Um, Pests and diseases seek the path of least resistance. So if you have an unhealthy or a compromised plant because it's not the right plant in the right place, or it's the right plant but in the wrong place, it's going to be more susceptible to pests. It's going to be more susceptible to fungus. It's going to be more susceptible to other diseases, and it's going to be harder to maintain.
Yeah, we see that with those, I think they're boar beetles or something like that. We get that sometimes in the community, and we try to get it better and try to get it better and ultimately end up getting a different plant in there. And it seems like it really helps out quite a bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. From a water conservation perspective, it's something where if you can get desert adapted type of plants, you'll minimize your water usage fairly significantly. You can go from, I mean, you could save 8,000 gallons a month um, on, on a variety of different desert adapted plants that need a lot less water once they're established. And so there's a pretty significant benefit to that, and then on the environmental benefits, it's something where, again, using the native plants, it's something where they will they will tend to be able to grow in all kinds of diverse soil conditions. It's something where you don't have to bring in and you don't have to amend your soil, and even offer very much in the way of any kind of fertilizing, because this is their home. It's something where it's like it's their natural gravitation. And it makes it simpler for us to own and to enjoy their presence in our yard.
Well, great. And it talks about wildlife, and wildlife love hiding in the plants, and get the lizards that run in and out of them, and the road runners. And well, we've got the javelina that feel that people's front yards are their own salad bar. So
Oh,
we do
yes.
that from time to time. They love those prickly pears and agaves. Let me just tell you. So let's get into the meat of it. Sent me some. I had some in my minds that are great plants to put out here in Arizona. So let's just do some quick touch on each of these real fast.
Yeah, the golden barrel, it's hard to kill a golden barrel. Um, they don't need very much water at all. You don't need to have a drip line to them unless you have something like at a quarter gallon per hour, and it gets watered, I don't know, once every couple weeks. Um, and they can grow to be pretty big, and they'll produce pups sometime, and they're really good to look at, and they actually help protect themselves. So the spines that they have are actually their version, if you want to call it leaves, but it's what it refers to as their leaves, and it's also a sunscreen. It's something where those wispy little spikes are a little bit softer than hard, and they serve as micro shade pieces for the plant.
Awesome. Yeah, they are, and they're really pretty. I've got a couple in my yard, and I can attest I don't have a very good green thumb. I have not killed them yet. And I don't water them very often.
Yeah. So agave, there are hundreds of varieties of agave. The Queen Victoria agave um, is it's a pretty tightly packed agave with great leaves, great branching, and it performs just magnificently in the heat for being an agave. Some agave um, that are variegated in color, which yellows and greens, don't fare nearly as well as the Queen Anne, which is highly adapted to our environment.
And they're so pretty. And well, you can make tequila from them maybe if you want to have a little at-home holiday or hobby or something. Just kidding. I'm not promoting moonshining in the Trilogy of Estancia area or anything.
All right, I don't know.
This is
The
another
next,
one that's in my yard.
yeah, the
Uh,
Mexican fence post. Um, they're a cool cactus. We have three of them in our front yard, and again, once planted and given a little bit of water, they root very easily and quickly, and they'll stay stable. If they do grow in height, um, they have built-in swayers. They go with the wind. It's really difficult to knock them down unless, of course, you're a javelina and you come by and you push it over. But they're beautiful. They don't litter, so it's something where if you want to have any kind of greenery, and southwest flare by a pool, for instance, these would be a great addition. Um, they don't have big thorns. They have very, very small thorns that are close by. You'd actually have to literally go right up to it and brush up hard against it in order to know that. So it's not something where it's not like a cholla where, things are going to fly off of it and end up in your pool. It's actually a great decoration piece.
Great. Let's go over to the Dallas red lantana. You talked about lantanas. I love lantanas because they're another one that's really hard to kill. And the Dallas red is my favorite. I've got several in my backyard.
Yeah, they're prolific. You give them the right combination of sun and shade, and it will go, oh, I don't know, 5 feet tall, 6 feet wide. Um, it will take over. And maintenance of them is literally, it's like if you want to do a renovation prune, you can do that the last week of February. Just basically cut it down to, I don't know, maybe 12 to 18 inches from the ground. Just go through, and I wouldn't use an electric trimmer, although you can, if you want to do that, to trim it maybe 2/3 of the way down, and then a hand clippers to do the rest of it. And it will come back bigger and stronger every year.
That is very true. I do it every year. And I love them because you can mound them and you don't have to have those like the old purple and gold lantanas. Remember those that everybody used to use? They vined out, they didn't mound. And these ones are absolutely perfect because you can actually make a nice bush out of them versus it just crawling across your rocks.
Yep.
But there's another one that you mentioned, the confetti.
Yes. So the confetti it's a party literally right in a plant. It's got like 5 different colors embedded in it. It's a hybrid, and it's just an amazing plant, and typically has denser foliage and denser blooms. Blooms all year, and just stays more like a mound, more compact. And if you want a different splash of color in your yard, this is a great piece to add to it.
I love it. I hadn't seen that one and you sent that over to me and I'm like, wow, that one's really pretty. Where can I stick one in my yard?
Yeah. Yep.
And then there's the ever so versatile rosemary bush. You can actually clip from it and use it in your kitchen because I've done that many times.
Oh, yeah. Rosemary is an aggressive grower. You give it a little bit of water and it thinks it owns your yard. So you have to be careful, that you don't give it too much water because it doesn't need it, and it will literally go to town. They're an amazing species. And there are many different varieties. I've probably counted at least half a dozen different varieties just here walking around in Trilogy. Um, and they all have just a slightly different scent and taste.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
interesting. Well, mine work really good with my recipes. So,
Yeah.
and you mentioned this is in your yard, the
Um,
elephant food.
Elephant food, yes. Elephant food it's very much a succulent where it's got a thick leaf, kind of spongy, and and the dark green ones, they require almost no maintenance. A little bit of water goes a long way. They take the heat, and they laugh it off. They're kind of like bottle brush plants where, you can set them in the ground, give them a little bit of water, and it's really hard to hurt them or destroy them. They're so hardy, and they're beautiful. And they have really interesting shapes. Um, you can shape them if you want to go through the process of spending a lot of time. manicuring it or whatever. But I prefer the natural look, which means it's really kind of cattywampus. It's just like all over the place, and we just let it grow.
Yeah, I love these. I love how all the leaves have a different shape and everything. They're really interesting to look at.
Yeah.
So here's my favorite, the Tacoma Stand Sparky. We talked about a Sparkette earlier. But
Yep.
I love the colors on this. I love it. It is so pretty. I said in the other video, I'm not, it's not because I'm an ASU fan or anything like that. They are just stunning. They remind me of a sunset just because it has that beautiful orange and that beautiful red. They're just phenomenal. And they grow really, really easily. I have not had any problems growing these similar to, the ones that you have in your backyard. They're just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, you can do next to nothing to them. And I mean, you can look at them and they'll bloom.
Yeah, mine's blooming in my yard right now. I've got two of them. I'm going to actually add two more this weekend.
That's awesome.
Well, and you talked about the yellow bells, and that's another Tacoma stands, and it's just another one that just takes off and goes and goes and goes.
Yeah, yellow bells are amazing. Uh, they are a really hardy plant. They may turn winter yellowed, and or they may suffer a little bit of uh, tension and pressure during the summer. But with even the slightest moderation in temperatures, and they just come storming back. You can cut it down every year to a 4 foot height, and it'll return back to 6, 7 feet tall if you let it with literally no effort. They just grow.
Wow, that's a good one. So it's the next one, the Orange Jubilee. We've talked about that in your yard too.
Yep, same story, same family. And they love size and they sway, and they attract birds, not just hummingbirds, and tons of bees. But and I don't know what the bird is. I have to look up to see who it is. But there's a bird that comes in and it sits on our two Orange Jubilee, and it picks at the base of the blooms. It sucks on the blooms and then kicks the bloom down onto the ground.
Oh my gosh.
It's hilarious. We
You'll have to
sit
get
there.
video of that for me.
I will. I will, because it's my wife and I were standing there. We were watching. Oh, look, the bird's feeding, and then also it's like boom, and it knocked off like 20 blooms. Now, 20 blooms on a plant that's got several hundred is no big deal, but it was like, hey, wait, don't do that.
That's a little rude. That bird's rude.
But it loves it. It keeps coming back every single day.
Well, interesting fact about our office here, we actually have a book of birds. So, because we see so many different kinds
Ah.
around the office. So we always go in and look and see what kind of bird it is. And then we mark off when we saw it. So that's something that we do in the office here. It's a little team building thing. So if you have a picture of it or get me a video of it, I can have Karen or Leanne look it up and we can figure out what it is.
I will definitely do that. That's wonderful.
Oh, this is another one of my favorite, the emu bush, known as Valentine bush.
Yeah.
This one, I think it comes from the outback, if I remember correctly. Is that correct?
Yep. It's Australian.
Yeah, and the red blooms on it are absolutely gorgeous. The only problem is you only get them like January, February time frame. It doesn't bloom all year round. But
Yeah.
when it isn't blooming, it's still a cool looking bush. But man, those red, just as soon as it starts going, it is just absolutely breathtaking.
And they're full sun. So it's something where they can take as much sun as you want to give them. They'll remain a vibrant green for the rest of the year, other than when they're blooming in January, February, and even into March. Um, And the great thing about having that January, February, March is it's something where you get some color in other than, mid to late spring. So you get some real variety.
Yep. And I can attest they are full sun because they are right out in my front yard, right by the sidewalk, and they get sun all day long, even in the summertime until oh, about maybe 4 or 5 o'clock when it starts going down behind the house. So
Right. Yeah.
it, it's just absolutely beautiful, though. These are great, great bushes.